Kayvon Thibodeaux had one of the strangest seasons I've ever seen an NFL player have. If you look at his box score stats, the more traditional, just like sacks and tackles and stuff, it actually looks pretty great. I mean, 11 and a half sacks, you're like, wow, he's established himself as a great starting player. Well done, Kayvon Thibodeaux. But if you look kind of, under the hood, if you look at more of the advanced statistics, Thibodeaux's pass rush win rate couldn't even crack the top 100 eligible players. This is out of about, I believe it's around 120 eligible players. He was behind Bud Dupree and just barely got ahead of Tyree Wilson, who everyone is looking at like, man, what an awful rookie year. They were essentially the same in these advanced statistics. So this is surprising, but not something you never see before. In fact, this happens pretty frequently. A guy who has a good amount of sacks one year, but maybe didn't have the best advanced statistics. It happens in a year in, year out basis, but it just doesn't happen every year. It'll be a different guy each year. Usually it's a player who has a lot of, the Vic Beasley is the kind of the go-to, has a lot of sacks, but didn't have a lot of great underlying numbers. And then 5 years from now, you're like, remember that one year he had a bunch of sacks? That was weird. That happens all the time. What usually doesn't happen, though, is a guy who had done a good job of having really good advanced underlying numbers all of a sudden have this happen. For example, let's use PFF grades. His Pro Football Focus grade last year was a bad 89.4, but 2 years ago, it was 72.5. That's a pretty massive jump. Still not elite in his rookie year, but for a rookie, that's really good. And then last year, what happened? Well, it's actually been primarily run defense that his grade has dropped off a lot. That's dropped off nearly 20 points, but his pass rush grade still has gone down as well. So he's in this weird thing where his box score stats went way up in a year, but his advanced stats went way down in a year. I don't know if I've ever quite seen that exact scenario happen before for a young prospect especially. So what does this all mean? It means we gotta watch the film, right? So let's get into the film. What did I see when evaluating Thibodeaux? So first, let's start off with a play like this. I do think I've come up with a theory for what's going on with Thibodeaux. I could be wrong, but I've come up with a theory. So we'll see if, I'll say that, and we'll, let me know in the comments below if you think I'm out of my mind or whatever. So let's start off with something like this. Going up one-on-one against Jordan Mailata, a really good offensive lineman here for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And when this play begins, you're going to see it doesn't really do a whole lot. Granted, throw does come out of Hurts's hands pretty quickly, but still, I think even if it didn't, that didn't look like it was going for a lot by Thibodeaux. Part of me wonders with Thibodeaux, coming out of college, he wasn't the best technician. He was a good enough technician and a great athlete, and he consistently was able to get his wins. And so most people felt like, well, his athleticism works at the college level. It'll probably work at the NFL level. And for the most part, we do see it pay off at the NFL level. But against the top of the line guys, it doesn't always. Like going over here, this is another example of that. Once again, going against Jordan Mailata, it's going to be a one-on-one matchup. And again, the tough guy to get pressure on, right? Watch how when this play begins, you're going to see that right here. Thibodeaux's going to try to use some of his, speed to get towards the outside, but Mailata is a pretty great athlete in his own right. Watch as Mailata is able to really just push, Thibodeaux behind Jalen Hurts, gets enough time for Hurts to make the throw. This is what definitely can happen. So, well, that doesn't really explain all of it, right? Okay, maybe when going up against great athletes, he struggles, but then why does he still have so many sacks? Why did he have good underlying numbers last year? Well, again, it's just a theory, but let's keep going. Let's go to this play against Seattle, where, it's not Jordan Mailata he's going up against. This is going to be George Fant, who, not a star by any means, and an NFL player, not like a scrub either, but let's see what Thibodeaux is able to do here. Well, when this play begins, you see that Thibodeaux is going to go for more of an inside move right here. And quite frankly, his inside moves are really good. Watch him be able to pull off this inside move and gets to the quarterback. And when you pull off an inside move, a lot of times you are more likely to get to the quarterback if you can do it cleanly, right? It might result in you giving up containment, getting blocked out of the way, but you might also have a higher pressure to sack ratio, which a lot of people kind of view as all luck by an edge rusher, but it's not. there's a good chunk of it being luck, but there is a skill to it as well, of course. But like this play's another one, once again going up against Fant, and watch what's going to happen here. When this play begins, Thibodeaux is going to start off as though he's maybe trying for bull rush, but again, that's not what's going to happen. He gets off that block, gets over to Smith, gets another sack right there. My theory with Thibodeaux is this. I'm wondering if, simply put, when he goes up against great tackles, he can kind of struggle and maybe needs to refine his game a little bit more, get some of the hand placement a little bit better when he's going up against Jordan Mailata, which is why his advanced stats might not be as good, why his batting average might be lower. But if we're going to use a baseball example, it's like every time he goes up against a bad pitcher, he hits a home run. And honestly, even bad pitcher is probably too strong. It's just like when he's not going up against elite pitching, he can really have success. But when he is going up against elite pitching, he almost never has success. Again, that's a bit, not exactly how this works. Of course, there are scenarios where he, has had success against good tackles or has struggled against bad tackles. But by and large, this is just an idea I had. Like a play like this is another one where he's going up one-on-one against the Washington Commanders left tackle right here. When this play begins, you're going to see that right here, going for more of an outside move. And, for the tackle, he's going to essentially just try and push Thibodeaux behind his quarterback. That's what he's going to try and pull off right here. And that move just does not work at all. Again, Thibodeaux has so much power that if you're not a great athlete at the tackle position, you are going to struggle against Thibodeaux. You just are. But if you are a great athlete, so far, at least last year, guys had success. It's honestly one of those situations you look at and say, I guess that makes some sense, but I don't know if that's fully it, and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I think it makes some logical sense. I think it's possible that that's the situation, but I certainly don't think that that's definitely it. It could be something else, but I think this makes sense to me, and I also think that it's possible if you are going to go along with my theory that of the idea that this is kind of what he is. It's probably optimistic if you're a Giants fan, right? Because it's kind of like saying that, well, once he continues to develop, he can then start to beat up on the good tackles, But for now, he can at the very least still beat up on the bad ones and still get success that way. And the reality is, most guys struggle against good tackles. Like, that's not a Thibodeaux exclusive thing. But it's just such a unique scenario. I've never seen a guy before go from a year where he had good underlying numbers but not great box score stats to having great box score stats but not great underlying numbers. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Usually what happens with a guy who had a year like last year is they end up not being that great. But usually what happens when there's a guy who had the rookie year that he had, they end up being really good. So I don't know. This is uncharted territory. I have my theory. That's just a theory, though. A film theory. There you go. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.